What up, YouTube? It's me, Johnny, back here again with another video. And on today, I want to actually talk about and give my review over the new Ashoka TV show that's been out. I know there's been tons of videos already out online about it, but I wanted to give my 2 cents on what I thought about the show, kind of give a little bit of storytelling aspect of what I believe is happening and possibly will happen in the next coming episodes. But before I dive into that, please, if you enjoy this content you're listening to here, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, hit that notification bell so anytime I put out a new video, you will be notified of it. But without further ado, let me dive into this. December 21st, 2012 was the date that every Star Wars fan who grew up with episodes 1 through 6, Star Wars shows like the Clone Wars, and of course, my favorite in Star Wars Legends, was hopefully optimistic that Disney would take Lucasfilms and continue with the greatness that George Lucas created. Now, fast forward to 2015, and then Disney first Star Wars film, if y'all remember, The Force Awakens comes out, and everybody was hyped about it. Everybody thought, oh my goodness, this is the next culmination of the continued story of the first 6 movies that we saw. But when we saw that movie, it was at that moment that most lifelong Star Wars fans knew that Disney might muck Star Wars up, and outside of Rogue One, Endor, and The Mandalorian, Disney has pretty much done just that. Outside of the shows that I actually just mentioned a second ago, every show that they have put out, and movie for that matter, has either been underwhelming or just flat out disappointing and sometimes terrible. And when I heard that they were going to make a show based on Ahsoka, one of my favorite Star Wars characters and Jedis, I set a bar so low that honestly, I just took the bar off the pole completely. We are at this moment 6 episodes in, and I got to say that I'm actually pleasantly surprised. Dave Filoni and John, not pronounce your last name, I'm going to butcher it, but you know who you are, in my opinion, has done what I believe has recaptured the Star Wars spirit that most Star Wars projects in the past has actually done. With Ahsoka, spoilers by the way, if anybody has not watched the series, so I apologize if you have not watched it. If you want to continue to listen, feel free, but if not, you can click off, watch it, and then come back to the video. But with that said, the first episode started with, introducing us to Ahsoka and some of the main Star Wars, well, I won't say they're villains, but characters that we were going to see in the show, like Baylan, for example, and Shin Hata, who came in and pretty much with the orange lightsabers, which for me, I thought that this meant, Dark Jedi, if you will. So Dark Jedi in, Legends were basically Jedi who also dabbled in the dark side of the Force. So they weren't exactly corrupted all the way by the dark side. They kind of use different aspects of it in a deeper way than Jedis themselves. No, they're not great Jedis. They don't have a balance or anything like that. But that is what I believe that we got. Now that it hasn't been confirmed in the show, and honestly, Baylan Skoll's character kind of more Jedi than he is even that. More on that in a little bit, but introducing these type of characters back into the show, and it didn't feel forced. They felt like actual natural Force users. It wasn't this thing like we've had with episodes 7, 8, and 9, where Rey just all of a sudden just comes out of nowhere with these crazy powers and able to just use the Force quite easily and effortlessly and all that. This was felt quite natural. Now, of course, it does help that Baylan Skoll's character, who I believe their characters feel are authentic to the show. Then, of course, obviously we have the character of Ahsoka, which also they did a good job of capturing the Ahsoka that we saw not only at the end of the Clone Wars, but especially during Rebels, where we got the, adult version or older version of Ahsoka at that point. So I feel that they captured that aspect of it. The other aspect that is recaptured, in my opinion. And this is something, and I just hinted on a second ago, that a lot of these newer Star Wars projects just flat out missed, is how the Force actually works. So again, with a character like Rey, for example, right, who a lot of people, Star Wars fans anyway, and fans of old, don't like. The reason why, outside of the terrible writing for her character, is the fact that they kind of just have the Force as this thing that can easily be learned and easily be manipulated, and that's not how the Force works. We saw Anakin Skywalker, who has, on record, probably the highest midichlorian count of any Force wielder, having to learn and master the Force. It just wasn't a natural thing where you're all of a sudden able to, move boulders or make them float and all that like that. That was just flat out not a thing. For example, in Ahsoka, we see where Sabine Wren, who maybe later in the show she'll end up being, they have not showed it yet in the first 6 episodes, and I think a lot of Star Wars fans are like, please don't let her be Force sensitive because that would be crazy. But I do think that maybe there is a chance. I mean, everybody in the Star Wars universe or galaxy has some connection to the Force, right? Some people are just more Force sensitive than others, but since there is this thing called a living Force which attaches all beings, right? I do believe that Sabine can use the Force at some point. She could be taught to use it. And that's the thing that I actually love, is that she's trying to use it and she can't. And it feels like when she is able to use it at some point, which I believe she will in these later episodes, I believe that it's going to feel authentic, like, wow, she finally learned something. If they have her just jump leaps and bounds and all of a sudden she's able to force push something or force choke something, I mean, that'll be crazy. I hope they don't do that. I like the fact that the Force is starting to feel authentic and something that has to be learned and honed into. My favorite character so far hasn't even been Ahsoka, and the show's about her. And her character is good, by the way. So this is no slight to her character. But my favorite character has honestly been Baylan Skoll. He feels like what Dooku could have been had Anakin not chopped his hands off. That's what Baylan Skoll's character feels like. He feels like a Jedi who isn't quite enamored with the Jedi way and says, I'm willing to do things that the Jedi code is against, but I'm willing to do it for what he believes is the betterment of the galaxy. Like, for example, there's no way any Jedi will be willing to bring Thrawn back, that they're going to go do. But in his mind, even though Thrawn is a problem, I think he believes that the greater good of what he's trying to achieve, that Thrawn is just lesser in that totem pole, right? It kind of gives me Dooku vibes and how Dooku was. Like, I don't truly believe that Dooku was ever going to go down the path of the Sith quite the way Palpatine wanted him to. I think he just utilized the dark side as a way to eventually, so he didn't get a chance to, but to eventually do the better good of the galaxy. And that's what I love about Baylan Skoll's character. And then, of course, his apprentice, she's a little more to the dark side. Like, you could see her if Baylan wasn't taught by Jedis and, having her, stand down in certain situations and stuff like that. I think she would just go full over to the dark side and have a red crystal. It's interesting because with Jedis, and this is something I didn't think about, and Siths for that matter, when they bleed their lightsabers, typically, depending on that person's attributes, dictates the color of the saber, if you will. And the fact that they both have on sabers, when Shin, her character feels like, she can be more dark than even Baylan. You would think that when she bled her crystal, that it would have been red, but maybe because of Baylan being, there to kind of help her not go all the way to the side of the dark, that's why, her saber is actually orange like his versus, red like a Sith. The next point I want to bring up in this is that they took a lot of elements from Rebels and they molded it into the story, right? You can tell it's a legit continuation of what after episode 6 is concluded, which obviously Rebels is in this. There's a part of it that didn't feel like they're breaking away necessarily. Now, with them going to a different galaxy, if you will, it does feel like they're trying to create a new universe. I don't think they're trying to, though. What I believe they're trying to do is get back attached to my favorite part of Star Wars Legends and bring some of that aspect over into canon. There's a lot of cool lore that's a part of Legends that hardcore Star Wars fans really hated the fact that Disney was just like, we're going to do this new stuff with episodes 7, 8, and 9. We're going to go this different route. Now, it kind of feels like they're rebooting it, if you will, and saying, you know what? We're going to incorporate some of the Legend stuff because it's kind of cool. I believe the show has done a much better job capturing all of those things. And with that, hopefully, especially if they're going to let Dave Filoni and his team work the rest of the Star Wars projects, we got a lot of them coming down the pike, then I think Star Wars can actually be pretty good. This show, though, has at least given us Star Wars fans some hope. So we'll see how Star Wars does. But let me know what you guys think in the comments about this. That's my take on the show. I think it's a pretty good show. I would recommend anybody who has not seen it to actually go watch it. Comment, let me know what you think. I could be wrong. I think the show is a brilliant breath of fresh air to what felt like Star Wars being a dying breed. But, and again, until next time, I'll talk to you all later. May the force be with you. Have a good day. Peace.